Hello, dear students. Welcome back again on the lecture series on JandK Reorganization Act 2019. Discussing the part third, we are going to start from section 42 without wasting any time. Okay. So section 42 tells us about procedures in legislative assembly in with respect to the estimates. Okay, what are the estimates that are being done in the or inside the legislative assembly? We are going to discuss that. Okay, so all expenditures charged upon consolidated fund of union territory not to be submitted to the vote. Okay, so all the expenditures that are charged upon the consolidated fund shall not be submitted to vote. Okay, okay, shall not be submitted to vote. Very important, just understand this. Okay, now another subsection tells us any demand for grant decided by legislative assembly. Okay, if there has to be demand for any grant, that will has to be, that will have to be decided by the legislative assembly. Okay, and the third important point is that no demand of grant shall be made except by the recommendation of lieutenant governor. If the lieutenant governor does not recommend for the demand for grant, there shall not be any demand for grant. Okay, simple. Let's move to section 43, which tells us about the appropriation bills. And you must have read in the polity appropriation bill, all the financial bills. Okay, all the financial bills, when they are discussed in legislative assembly and then they are set by a committee, they are investigated, scrutinized by the committees, and then they are put to vote, and then they are finally passed. That procedure, that is called appropriation of bills. Okay, and appropriation of bills, that is always related when the money is has to be charged by or charged upon the consolidated fund of union territory or consolidated fund of the state. Okay, so that is section 43, very important about appropriation bills. Okay, section 45, why 43, 44 skipped, not important. 45, that is vote on account. Okay, what is a vote on account? Very important term. Okay, when for example, if a bill is being discussed, a budget is being discussed, and without the completion of budget process, there cannot be any demand made by the government for money simply. But there is one option they have kept in case of emergencies. If you need money, okay, by shortcutting everything, and if you don't want to wait for the completion of the appropriation of bills, there is this option, that is vote on account. Okay, LA, that's Legislative Assembly, have the power to make demand for any grant in advance before the completion of the procedure. So that's votes on account. And the voting that is done on it is called votes on account. Okay. So this is section 45 simplified. Section 46 tells us about the rules of procedure, means all the responsibilities, duties of ministers, the LG, and all the members that are associated with it, how they kind of proceed with these processes and how they complete these processes, in kind of completing the bills, analyzing the bills. That's called the rule of procedure. So that is section 46. Moving to the section 47, it tells us about the official language of UT. Okay, official language of UT of Jammu and Kashmir. Simply, its first clause tells us that legislative assembly can adopt any one or more language. Just remember it, any one or more, okay, language, or it has to adopt Hindi as a language. Okay, any one or more language if available, or it has to make Hindi. Second is that all the businesses that are being conducted in the legislative assembly have to be translated into Hindi or English. Okay, they are to be translated into Hindi or English, just remember that. But there is a kind of exception, that if a person is incapable of speaking those languages, then the speaker of the legislative assembly may permit that person to speak in the mother tongue. Okay, so that's again the section 47 about the language. Section 48, that's language to be used for acts and bills. So when any act is passed or when any bill is passed, that has to be passed in an English language. Just remember that. Okay, very important. Any act or any bill that is being passed, written, anything that has to be written or passed in English language only. Okay, section 48. Section 49 tells us about restriction on discussion in legislative assembly. Okay, restriction on discussion in legislative assembly. No discussion in legislative assembly with respect to conduct of judge of high court and supreme court. You cannot discuss the conduct or business of any judge of high court or supreme court in an legislative assembly. Okay, that's it. Section 50 shows you the power of legislative assembly, or kind of a separateness of the powers, or the separation of powers. Okay, courts not to inquire in proceedings of legislative assembly means courts are not supposed to interfere in any proceedings of legislative assembly or whatnot. Section 50, okay, very important. Section 49 and 50, very important. Okay, now moving towards so this will be a bit lengthiest video, because I'm gonna try to finish the whole part third, okay, as it's getting lengthier now. So section 51 says that there has to be a separate secretariat staff, or there has to be a secretariat of legislative assembly. Okay, office of secretariat, very important. Section 51, okay, remember that. Section 52, power of lieutenant governor to promulgate ordinances. First I'll explain what is an ordinance. See, whenever a legislative assembly is not in session, the power there has a power that is kind of making a law. Okay, the power to make law is in the hands of lieutenant governor. Okay, when they, just remember, when the legislative assembly is not in session. Okay, so ordinance actually has the same power as the act of legislative assembly. Okay, it has the same power as the act of legislative assembly. So when does this ordinance cease to operate? See, if there is expiration of 6 weeks from reassembly, means if the assembly has returned back to the business and the 6 weeks passed, the ordinance of the lieutenant governor shall cease to exist. Okay, simple. Section 53 tells us about council of ministers. Okay, that the council of ministers number should not be less than 1/10 of total members. Okay, 1/10 of total members, or 10% of the total members, or simply we can say 1/10 of total members. Okay, and council of ministers will have some powers. Now there are some powers that a that an LG, or that a LG can kind of operate in discretion, and those powers of discretion are also present with lieutenant governor. Okay, so moving to the section 54, that is other provisions to the ministers. What are the other provisions? That chief minister has to be appointed by lieutenant governor. Other ministers are to be appointed by lieutenant governor, but with the advice of chief minister. Okay, and third subclause tells us about the collective responsibility of council of ministers. Means whatever decisions will be taken in an assembly, all the person or all the ministers will be collectively responsible for that decision. Okay, you cannot put blame on a single minister, so it has to be a collective responsibility. Subsection 4, oath of every minister has to be undertaken by lieutenant governor, and there has to be two oaths: oath of secrecy and oath of office. Okay, just remember that. And the fifth subclause says that a minister shall not be a member. Okay, shall not be a member if he is not be sorry, a minister shall not be a minister if he is not the member of legislative assembly for consecutive 6 months. Okay, if he is not a minister, is not a minister, he will be he will not be considered a minister if he is absent from 6 months. Okay, in an legislative assembly. Salaries of ministers, again very easy, drawn by legislative assembly. Okay, now section 55 tells us about conduct of businesses. Okay, it's very easy. Any business that is being done inside a legislative assembly, that is the conduct of business. That is section 55. Section 56 tells about us duties of CM towards lieutenant governor. You must have read it in the CM and all that prime minister and president process, that there are some duties. So duty of a CM is to convene every decision of council of ministers to the lieutenant governor, and to kind of tell about any kind of a problem that is going on in the council of ministers to the lieutenant governor, simply to tell the business of legislative assembly to the governor. That is the duty of CM, chief minister. Section 57 and the last section of the part third, that is abolition of legislative council of state of Jammu and Kashmir. State of Jammu and Kashmir, when it was a state, it used to have two things, that's legislative council and legislative assembly. Okay, now due to the Reorganization Act, section 57, the legislative council is abolished and it shall not exist. That is by JandK Reorganization Act. Okay, abolition of legislative council. Okay, so that's it for today, and I hope you have understood it. Okay, very well. I have tried to simplify it, as I can, or as I could. I don't think there is any scope of simplifying it further. Okay, then I hope you have enjoyed this lecture, and I will see you in the next part. Thank you so much for watching.